How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my Geoguessr tips series, where I, a born and bred American, am going to help you understand some tips that you can use to figure out where you are in the U.S. And a subscriber asked me if I could give him some tips about how to recognize the landscape. And so this is the second part of that series where I talk about the Great Plains. The first part, deserts, there will be a link in the description. Anyway, the Great Plains is tens of thousands of square miles, maybe hundreds of thousands, math isn't really my strong suit, of this pretty much central western part of the United States. Now, there's no official marker that separates the Great Plains from not the Great Plains, with the exception of on the west side you got the Rocky Mountains, but leaving that alone, by some definitions the Great Plains don't really start until you're west of Iowa and Missouri here. Other definitions extended into parts of Missouri and Iowa. But anyway, that's the general idea. East of the Rockies, west of the Mississippi River, all the way up to the Canadian border, and in some places all the way down to the Mexican border. And on the Google Maps, based on my kind of crude drawings here, this blue section is roughly the Great Plains. Then this green section here, this is my add-on. This isn't officially a part of the Great Plains, probably because these states get more rainfall, but parts of Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, almost all of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, the northern part of Missouri, those are all Midwestern states where the landscape is either flat as a pancake or at the very least gently rolling hills. And so it's kind of easy to confuse those with the Great Plains. But anyway, let's take a look at some examples of the Great Plains. Here we are in the northern part of Missouri. And like I said, by some definitions, northern Missouri is part of the Great Plains, even though here it's heavily forested and it's not all that particularly flat. So, it's one of those things that has to be taken with a grain of salt. Now, by comparison, when we get here to this part of Nebraska, it is pancake flat for miles around. And it also looks kind of arid. Now, keep in mind, in my video about deserts, I did say that large swaths of the United States, even though they're not officially desert, are kind of arid, especially if the car went through there in the summer. And then here is a part of Illinois, which is not officially part of the Great Plains, but is generally flat as a pancake, but a lot greener since it gets a lot more rainfall. So, when you are playing Geoguessr in the US and you see a large flat expanse that's, devoid of palm trees, or really devoid of almost any trees, you're probably in the Midwest, probably in the Great Plains. And particularly when you see, it's hard to tell because it's early in the season, but that's corn growing over there and that's soybeans growing over there, or vice versa. Anyway, you're probably in the Midwest. Think in terms of Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, that region. And a pro tip here, if you see something that looks like this machine right here, that's an irrigation system, and those are almost exclusively further west of the Mississippi, where it's drier. So, to summarize, wide flat plains, kind of arid looking. You're definitely west of the Mississippi, probably even further west of the Mississippi border states, which is to say west of Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri. If it doesn't look too awfully arid, but it's still flat, you see corn and soybeans growing, you're almost certainly in the Midwest. Northern Missouri, most of Illinois, most of Indiana, most of Iowa, most of Minnesota. As with all things, the system isn't foolproof. And, sometimes you may see something that makes you think you're in one part of the country when you're actually in a completely different part of the country. But it's a starting point. And As in all things Geoguessr, a starting point is sometimes the difference between a good score and a bad score. So I hope this helps. Check out my other Geoguessr USA tips, links in description, and we'll see you next time.